What's Up Fertility. Today we have just Kat and I on. We thought we'd just do just a fun little sit down, just us two, just a life update, what's been going on with me in the IVF world, as well as what's been going on with Kat. So welcome, and here we go. Just you and I.
Here we go. I know. So our end of February episode, and I know, gosh, I always feel so boring when we get on because I don't have as much exciting stuff going on as you do, but you're really in I was thinking earlier, you're in round 2 for IVF, but that's not at all accurate because gosh, you've done.
Yeah, just I guess round 2 of the transfer side for sure. But obviously, not round 2 of IVF in general. But this is the second time I've gone through the transfer part of it. Yeah.
What do we call it? Bristow baby number 2?
I mean, in our house, we already know the baby's name. So I already
you do really?
Ben, yes, when we talk about siblings, we know the sex, obviously. So Ben will say baby, whatever.
Oh, wow.
So it's just our normal everyday that we just kind of say it, and our whole family does too. So it's really funny.
That's so cool. And so I know, I'm pretty sure you might have already shared this, but because I know you want to share everything, but you have a transfer date now, or that kind of changes, right?
So we have a tentative in mid-May, but it's gonna change. We go and we've talked about it, but our embryos are in Michigan, so I have to go to Michigan in April and do some procedures then, which I'll get into and we could talk about. So it'll kind of depend on what happens then, but yeah, May. That's the
right. Of course. Yeah. So you have do you already have everything booked for Michigan?
Oh no. I keep having to call for my day 1 of my period, so it can change it, but they said at this point now, so I TMI, but I literally just got my period. So I just had to call them. And so they now at this point are locking in. So I'm getting the hysteroscopy, we're doing a trial transfer, and then the saline ultrasound. I don't know what it's exactly called.
You do a trial transfer with Ben?
No.
I know. I was going to say, I think this is new.
This is new.
Is it just because there's less embryos, or just
I don't know, honestly. And I even asked if we could do the hysteroscopy here with my OB or so, I don't know, and she said no, I have to go there. So at this point now it's scheduled for April 4th, and I have to so if anything weird happens where my period gets delayed, they'll put me on some medicine so that I don't get it, because I have to be a certain time of your.
You're bringing me back into all of this. I'm yo, do you have everything scheduled? No, I have to start my period first.
Literally, I know everything. I'm back fully in. I'm calling them. Now I'm having to get supplements and meds. And I mean, I'm it's so weird when you're out of it first. Cause it was my everyday. I mean, you too. It's, now I've been out of it for 2 years. Ben's 2 years old now. And I'm this is so weird getting back into it.
Really almost 3
how much is, honestly. Cause then so I can't do math.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, really, since we started the podcast, we started it.
Oh, yeah. So 3. Yeah. Crazy.
This will be so interesting. And May sounds like it's tomorrow. But again, I'm not in it. And you're probably oh, it's so far.
Yes and no. I'm but I also feel I'm drowning in the things that I have to get done prior, that I'm oh my gosh, how do I even do this?
It's so different.
Weird, because now I have a kid that I'm just so busy in my day to day that I'm oh my gosh, okay, appointments. Does he come with me? Do I do it's, I don't know. There's just a whole nother
way. And you're not riding the high of just matching with embryos. It's you're not okay, I just got these embryos. Let's go. Now you're just kind of have these for 3 years or 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But it's exciting also for him to be so excited too. Cause he keeps saying okay, mommy's going to have a baby in her belly. And so and we also stopped nursing. And so now I keep saying milk is just for baby, whatever, brother, sister, whatever it is. Oh. But I just keep saying that because he would ask. And now when he sees my boobs naked, it's really funny because he'll be oh, it's milk for baby, our baby.
It's actually a very smart tactic.
Yeah, it worked. So
that's awesome. I know. I wish I had. I know. I was gonna say, I wish I had better updates. I know I went back and forth. I said no babies, and then I was we're gonna start trying in January, and now I'm okay, maybe we'll start trying again at the end of the year.
Wait, really, you're pushing it?
Yeah, I just had such a traumatic pregnancy, I think, and I'm but it's so interesting, and I'm not gonna I'll say 2 sentences on this because I say it every time. I'm in the mindset of like, we'll start trying in October and we'll be pregnant. And like the reason I'm not trying is because I have trips planned and like my sister-in-law is pregnant and I want to like go visit the baby when they're born. And I couldn't do that when I was pregnant. But it's just so funny. It's kind of like you getting back in the mindset, like, okay, but like it could also take me 2 to 3 years or it can never happen. So it's just like how quickly you forget.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, I know it's a lot. It's so weird being on the like this part of it for sure. But well, huge thing happened. And so like I knew this to an extent. Okay, so side note, this is like a whole story. I had told Kat this. I didn't fully tell her. I was like, I was
You
trying
didn't
to
tell me anything. You said
No,
there's
I
a
know, but
really
I
big
called you,
thing
I
to
was
tell
like,
you. And I said, well, don't tell me till we start recording. So
like I want a true reaction on the podcast. I was like, oh gosh, okay. All right. So it's not great. I mean, it's not horrible, but it's kind of my fault. I mean, it is my fault. Okay. So back up. Okay. So obviously we get our embryos, all is great. We have our donor profiles. So this is like before, like, Ben. So now I'm pregnant with Ben at the time, all is well. Now we go to 28 weeks. So at 28 weeks, so I have O negative blood, I'm Rh negative. So normally you would get RhoGAM, right? Okay, so I'm like crunchy to a sense. So nobody like whatever. But I'm crunchier, okay? More
so
holistic thing.
Like, I don't see you as crunchy at all, but I know you are.
I know.
Like,
Because I'm like, I'm 80-20. Give me my Botox, girl. Like I want that, but also like
but you're also not like hippie walking around in like
no.
Goodwill thrifted shoes.
No, I love a good Gucci bag. Okay. So, take crunchy as you want. Okay. I'm scrunchy. I'm a fake crunchy version. Okay. So anyway, so I was like, I don't want to get any unnecessary like shots if I don't have to. Like while I was pregnant, I was just like really nervous for everything, whatever. So I was like, okay, like I looked at the profiles of the donors and they're both negative. Like, excuse me, they're both negative. So there's no need to get the RhoGAM shot. If both are like all parties are negative and I'm negative, there's
so this is weird because I'm O positive. So I would never, so with all my miscarriages, I never got RhoGAM because of my blood type. And so I don't even know what you're talking about. So like, I mean, I know you're supposed to get it at 20 some weeks, but what is the
okay, so let me for people who like don't understand, this is like my mom was, my sister was, I am. It's just like, so this is normal, but like, so for which a lot of people aren't, so they don't know. So basically, if you are Rh negative, which is like a part of your blood type, which you'll get tested when you're pregnant, I was
just gonna say, isn't everybody Rh negative except O positive, or no, I'm making that up.
I don't think so.
They'll tell you. Okay, they'll tell you.
Yeah, they'll tell you. Like you just get your blood work done. I'm O negative, Rh negative. Like, and so you would get that done. And so when you're negative, you obviously don't know the blood type of your baby as of yet. Like, so they basically treat you with caution because like, unless your spouse also is O negative. Like if you both are O negative, then it's like literally not possible for you to have. It's like that you learned in science where you like how to do the little charts and like you could put it together. You know what I'm talking about?
Look at you. Yes. And, yeah, and so it's because
it's not even for the baby that you're currently pregnant with. It's for future kids. So basically what can happen is say you're pregnant with a baby that is positive, your body will create antibodies. And essentially what your body would do is like fight against that and essentially could try and kill the baby the whole time, not to get like really dark.
Yeah, well, that's what they do it even with like a early loss because 100%. It's like for future. Yeah, okay.
Yes. So I was like, we looked at the profiles. Everyone is negative here. There's no talked it over with my OB. She was like, okay, well, if everyone truly is negative, like it's totally fine. We don't need to do it. So, okay. And I was like, all right, cool. Everything's great. So then my son's born.
Did you look at the mom?
Ben is B positive. I was like raising hell in the hospital. No, I can't believe I didn't even tell you this.
Oh, because I was going to say, this isn't new information. This was old information.
So he was born. So literally I made the hospital test him three times. I mean, it's on my bill, like 3 times blood work done. They pricked like the whole thing. I'm like, there's no way. There's something is wrong with your system. No, there's nothing wrong with their system. My idiot self somehow, this is actually really scary. So like, it's not great. I don't know. There was some kind of like mishap, and the sperm donors actually has positive blood.
But on your records, it's negative?
No, on my records, it's positive. So I read the egg donor twice or something. And there was some, I mean, I don't know what happened. Okay. So like, not to put the blame on myself because like I can't hold that because it's like too heavy, but there was some miscommunication, something happened. And I read so all that, right? So now we fast forward. Well, no, then we're there and they're like, we're going to give you RhoGAM right now. So they give me RhoGAM. So
really?
Well, it's normally in 2 doses. So normally you get it at 28 weeks and then you get it postpartum.
Oh,
so one of that. Yeah. So I got 1. I just didn't get 2. Okay. So now fast forward. Now we're trying for another one, right? We're starting IVF again. I have to go to maternal fetal, which I just had my appointment last week with them because I have to get cleared from them in order for my clinic to say that I can start IVF, which I don't know.
Why?
Because my lupus.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
So they have to clear me. This usually doesn't always happen, but because my autoimmune, they have to clear me and say, and I have to show all my lab work from my, like my doctors and all of that stuff, whatever. So he clears me. Everything's great. We're chatting. And I'm like, random question. I don't know why. Like, I just want to make sure like that this is okay. I was like, I didn't get
MFM doctor probably was losing it.
Oh, literally losing it. It wasn't great. So I tell him this and okay, so this is why I panicked. And this is where I literally was like, wait, what do you mean? Okay. So I'm explaining the situation to him, telling him exactly what I just told you, how like I only did 1. Something happened where we clearly read the report wrong and I didn't get both doses. He was like, okay, the good thing is you got 1 dose and usually that's enough for your body to not create the antibodies. He's like, but I want to do an antibody screening on you and we can test to see if you have any of the antibodies. I'm like, perfect, great, let's do it tomorrow, which I haven't done that yet. It's this week. It's scheduled.
Oh, I was like,
what I don't know the results. I don't know the results.
Okay, so it could be fine.
Yes, but this was his response. I was like, okay, because you know me, I go worst case scenario. It's probably not great, but like how my brain processes. I was like, so worst case, like I have these antibodies, what happens next? And he was like, well, I don't want to go there fully yet because like I want to wait for the results, but it's going to be an entirely different conversation and a very different pregnancy, if so. And I'm like, okay. He was like, I would recommend that you would get negative embryos. And I literally was like, that's not an option. What do you mean? Like, I already have 2 embryos, like waiting. Like, what? Like, I can't, it's not just like
complete, they're been siblings.
Yes. I was like, that's not an option. And so I was like, which his response made me even more nervous because I'm like, but I don't know if he was just saying that for like an easy route. Do you know what I mean? But it's not like
I will say, because I manage too. I work in MFM and like they always are worst case scenario. I mean, I think that's just their job. They always, like when I had polyhydramnios, they tested for everything with Brooklyn and then they still set me down. And like, I know these guys and they set me down. They're like, look, like what we can test is good, but there's still a possibility that she's born with a genetic disorder that we just aren't able to test for. So I think they do like, they feel their due diligence to like say that, but what?
Yeah. So then of course, you know, I spiral. I'm like hysterical crying, like this is all my fault. And like Chris is like, of course it's not, like shit happens. Like it's like, and then what?
When did this happen?
Literally like 2 days ago. Like this is very sad. I think
okay, so I think we should ask.
I'm spiraling. If you can't tell, I'm not doing well.
I think anybody that didn't have RhoGAM, like anybody that like didn't have RhoGAM in the situation, reach out to Amanda.
Oh yeah, please. Someone tell me that I'm gonna be fine. Everything's great. So now, of course, I'm like, well, now.
But he didn't say.
So I'll know more when the antibody comes back. So obviously, praying that I don't have any antibodies. And he's like was very confident in like of saying like, okay, well, you got like 1 at least, so like it should be fine. And apparently, like back years ago, they only used to get 1, but.
Oh,
how they get 2 for
well, I'm proud of you for getting it at postpartum.
What?
I'm proud of you for getting the RhoGAM postpartum.
Oh, I mean, I will get whatever. I mean, I got.
You just didn't feel like it was necessary.
Well, I just was like, why do I need to get this if everyone is get it? Like, there's no point. Like, it's not like you don't get things. Like, I mean, I got the COVID vaccine while I was pregnant. Like, I got stuff.
No,
but I mean, like,
sense.
I don't know. So I just like. I don't know. I was just so nervous. This was my mindset when I was pregnant because I was so scared anything I did was going to kill my child. And I know that's real. So I was like, the least I can do that's gonna like add anything in. I was just trying to like,
I have no room to talk because I didn't get it either. Like I wasn't a candidate for it, but like I don't know. Like that's wild.
so now I'm like in this limbo of like waiting. And of course, like it's so hard because like I know it wouldn't be my fault, but like it kind of is. Like I don't know.
It's
So I'm like,
not.
no, this is like, and I'm like freaking out and I'm like talking to Chris and like just to be like super like I don't know, honest with everyone. Like I literally was like, so if I have a miscarriage, like it's essentially my fault. Like if Ben does not have any more siblings, it could be my fault. And like to hold that, and Chris is like, you can't put that on you. Like
and also like Chris, I mean, not to put it on Chris either, but for both of you, like he could have looked like you could have had, you know, somebody else could have looked like it's not on you.
And like that the OB could have been like, you have to show me proof. Or I mean, and not like, but there could have been more things. Like
absolutely.
Also, I'm trying to make myself feel better. So it's fine.
Oh my gosh. No, you did in the moment exactly what you thought was best. Oh my gosh.
You don't hate me because I'm like stressing.
Okay, I'm gonna be praying for you. That's
so we should know this week. It's like apparently like just a blood draw, like it's super easy. But yeah. So and again, I don't even know like if they're like, okay, you do have it, you just have to take these shots or this medicine, or like I know nothing. So I'm still in this like waiting game.
Wow. That was a lot bigger than I thought you were gonna say.
Yeah, it's not great. Not great.
God. Okay.
Casual. So just moving on, going through IVF still.
That was insane. Okay. So probably like when we do our March episode, you still won't have gone up to Michigan, but like you'll probably have a clean timeline.
Yeah. Because my appointment's in April, the beginning of April, like that first week. So yeah. So I'm just a stress ball right now, guys, just being honest here. So that's kind of what
I felt like I was recording like a guest.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh,
wanted your true reaction. Well, here it is.
Okay, let's see what do we have coming up, because we're gonna air this tomorrow. Who have we recorded with lately? Like everybody.
Everyone.
I can't remember. We posted I really, really like the surrogacy episode. I mean, I love everybody's episode, but like I feel like we have always talked about getting a surrogate on, and then we just never had. So,
I think recently we've had a lot of embryo adoption, which has been fun.
Yeah,
which is so cool for me. I always get like, I love all of our guests, but embryo adoption obviously just like has my heart. So like, it's really fun to get to like talk with other people that have gone through it and how like it led them to that point, because it's so different every time.
Well, like yesterday's was so cool. And I think season 3, I feel like we've seen this more where people are coming on and they're saying, this is the route I chose because I listened to your podcast last year. Like with Katie, she's like, well, I found out about through embryo adoption through your podcast. Like,
it's like, so it's like a pinch me moment, because it's like, that's the whole point that we started this, which is so freaking cool.
That is really cool. Okay. And we had obviously Camille on. So we have Emily, which is readiness counsel. We actually have had like a lot of like counselors on too.
Oh,
and like, maybe just
like,
yeah,
I love that.
And like some, I say foreign people like Minerva. I might have said that wrong, but I don't think so. Hers was a really great episode on,
like,
oh my gosh. Thank you. I can't talk. And then I didn't join. You actually interviewed with Alexis, right?
Yeah.
Was it good?
It was so good.
Yeah. But like, I'm sure
it was really good. Yeah, it was good. She had what was it called?
She was embryo adoption.
Yeah.
And she had her son, and this was her second time on the podcast.
Yep. She had the what was it called? The Previa. Was it the
Listen to Previa. So she was about
no, she had the Vaza. It was like
the
Vaza one. Yes. Vaza Previa. I'm probably Vaza. I don't know. You're more medical.
Come on. You're right. I mean, no, you're right on the terminology.
Yeah. I know we've had so many fun people on. It's really cool and so different, which is like obviously the best.
Yeah, and we're completely booked out. I would say we're completely booked out for March. And then yesterday we recorded with Katie, who shared, so they did embryo, and I'm not going to like spoil it, but they did embryo adoption, but her husband was 100% infertile with male factor infertility, but it was like a genetic kind where it was, I don't
Like
want to say
from birth.
irreversible.
He had it.
Yeah, he just
Yeah.
never produced sperm. And we like begged her to get him on the podcast. So Amanda and Chris are going to record with Brandon. Is that her husband's name? Brandon and Katie in March. And that'll be a really, maybe I'll like mediate. Maybe I'll just sit and listen.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, no. And then you could ask us all questions. You could be like the little.
Yeah. Okay, I'll join.
Okay, yeah, obviously. But no, we have so many good ones coming. We've obviously had such good ones.
Should we shout out? Should we like soft preview our Fertility Awareness Week guest?
Oh yes. Okay, so exciting. This is like such a fun one. I think a lot of people will like know who she is too, which is fun. But Whitney Angel is coming on the show. And she's what, Ova Egg Freezing? Am I saying it right? Her company is?
That's correct.
But we are having her on and we're super excited. We're going to do like a fun little Q&A too, that people can like ask questions. And they can, like ask questions prior. So then when we're like actually recording with her, we can like ask everyone's questions and stuff.
Whitney was on The Bachelor, right? And
she was so cute and all of the Bachelor fans, because I know are, but like
yeah, and she talks about her own personal journey as well as like her company. So that's exciting.
So cool. I know. I'm excited. That's gonna be such a fun one. But yeah, we have so many good ones coming up. We have, again, a fun thing. We haven't announced it, but it's getting closer to it. It's going to be next month. I think it's next month.
We're going to do our annual photo shoot that we do once a year. We're going to do it all the time. And then we do it once a year. And yeah, we'll announce it then.
Yeah, for sure. We did want to like mention one thing.
I'm dying laughing because how long have we been recording? Like 30 minutes, and I'm like, when are we going to talk?
So this is like we went back and forth. Obviously, this is like such a huge part of our community. So IVF, infertility, all that is like why we started all of this. And like what's going on in the world right now is like a huge thing in our community. And so we felt weird not saying anything. But it's also like a touchy subject. So I don't know. We just like wanted to like mention it and like know that we hear everyone, and we like, I don't even know. I don't know.
So passive about it because like, right. Like we don't even, I think
don't want to get canceled.
Right. Well, like, so like in Alabama, obviously for IVF, like that's just, it's with UAB pausing treatment for women in the middle of it. It's
absolutely terrible. I couldn't even imagine going through IVF. One already is horrible. And then now like being told like, hey, your transfers are canceled. I literally would be sobbing. Like, I can't imagine that feeling.
I was talking to Josh about it too. And just like, I mean, it's not like you're like canceling or pausing like an elective I mean, it is on paper, it's canceling, pausing an elective procedure, but it's not, because you've paid for all those medications and you've gone through the mental. I could not imagine like having, like have your timeline and then you're just like, yeah, my transfer's like in 2 weeks, my transfer's in 2 weeks. And then it's like, no, it's not.
And not even like, because like obviously transfers have been canceled for like other things before in the past, but like, right. And now you're not like, okay, well now it can be rescheduled for this. Like it's so unknown, and there's no like answer for people, which I think is I'm sure so frustrating. And
right. And I feel like Natalie Crawford does a really good job, I believe. And I think like if you want to share more, Amanda, absolutely. But like Dr. Natalie Crawford does a really good job. She's board certified OBGYN and REI, and she just like, I think was kind of ahead of it, like just trying to like share. And I think what I was sharing with Amanda before we started, I think what's so wild, well, number one, like I have friends that probably never said IVF in their life. And, they're talking about the case and they're talking about what's going on, which I think is good, like for awareness. But I also think it's just wild too, that this case was like in the courts because of couples who lost their embryos. So like kind of backing it up. And I think everybody probably already knows this, but maybe they don't it, the court was brought about, or the case was brought about by 3 couples who were well, back up even further. So there's a clinic in Alabama, and I could not have all the facts straight, but I believe it was attached to like a larger hospital, or it was attached to like a larger facility, and a patient had wandered in to the, it's not like the freezer room, like the cryo, what do you call it?
Lab
It was, they walked into the area where the embryos were frozen, and they opened it, and like, why, I don't know that information. Like, why was that patient in there? Was it malintent? Was it curiosity? Like, I don't know anything about that individual, but when they picked up the trays, which are obviously freezing, and he dropped them. I say he, could have been a girl. They dropped them, and those embryos obviously like were discarded. And I don't know if you want to like jump in here and share your thoughts with like, well, let me finish, I guess. So like the couples are suing the clinic. I think they're also suing, I think there's 2 people being sued, and I hate that I'm not more prepared, but they're suing under the minors, right? The death of a minor. Oh, my phone just died, so now I can't fact check myself. But like death of a minor, and they're saying our embryos were children. They have to be children to be considered death of a minor. And so that's what they were suing. And they actually lost in the initial case, and then they appealed it. And in the Supreme Court, that is where the Supreme Court said, yes, they are children. And I know, and Amanda, like, I know they like quoted like verses from the Bible, which I think where there's a lot of noise on social media, where that's really that's a lot of that. Like, I think there's like a language matters hashtag going around and saying like, that's kind of where church and state, and that is kind of the concern on that. But again, I'm just going to go all the way back. I just think it's so interesting that it's couples that went through infertility, and that's why this is in the courts. Like,
yeah,
it wasn't just like, oh, we're just going to talk about this today.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it gets so hard. It really does. And like, because I don't even know, because I have so many opinions and so many, but it's so like, I see sides to everything. And
so I think coming from you, somebody that adopted embryos, you probably have an interesting or a more unique look on embryos, and
for sure. And I know people and follow people who also have adopted embryos and completely disagree with my feelings. So like, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. This is obviously not factual. This is just opinionated. And Kat and I even have some difference of opinions. And so like, we are totally accepting of like, what you believe is what you believe, and that's totally fine. My embryos, like my 2 embryos that I have waiting for me, for us as children. And so like, I can see, like, I was like putting myself in the shoes of those parents that lost those embryos. And like, if they would have pulled ours out, I mean, I would have 100% like done the same thing and sued for murder. That's just me. And like, obviously not everyone agrees with that, because I know still, even saying that, we could transfer tomorrow and it not be a child. So like, I get it. Like, I do.
Right. And I think so. Yeah, because we briefly going back, like, Amanda, it's so funny because I don't think we've ever like publicly said that we have different opinions. It may have been like noticed during different episodes, but I think, yes, I think that's awesome that you can share that, and that's how you really do see. I mean, I was telling you, I don't have frozen embryos, and I have absolutely zero intentions of doing IVF again. So my standpoint and my thought process is likely different than somebody that does have frozen embryos and is in the midst of, I mean, you're in the midst of IVF. But I don't even know where I was I think, to your point, is absolutely valid. And I also think what we've kind of received from some of our listeners too, is they're just saying, yeah, I believe that too, but it shouldn't have been a ruling that now affects other families. I think that's like where some of the differences are. And I think it just happened, right? It just happened on, was it Monday?
I think so. I mean, yeah, it's like
over the weekend. Yeah. So it's still so fresh. And I think we could talk about this in 4 weeks and it'll be different. I know that there's a lot of legislation right now going in, like legislators going in and saying, okay, this is now precedent. And how do we really protect, again, language matters. How do we kind of make other bills and rules in place that, yeah, absolutely, children, like embryos, I don't even know, like embryo, like mothers of embryos they're frozen can have that, but they aren't necessarily, it's not going to be a liability for clinics if the embryo
That's
doesn't.
where I think it gets so iffy. And like, there's such a blurred line because like now, like what I don't ever wouldn't want to happen is now like people are not able to then have children and like be able to do these procedures and do these transfers because doctors now don't want to get sued or I mean there's so many weird things that can now happen due to this like ruling that like obviously we don't want that either. Like
right, my initial reaction, because I work in the business side of healthcare, and so like my initial reaction was, wow, number one, that's super sad for the families.
100%. Yeah.
Wow. Number two, as somebody that does operations and literally does malpractice for physicians and understands what that looks like, I'm like, well, if there's nothing else that's going to adjust here, I don't know how you would even have malpractice. And I do fully believe that's why these clinics are pausing right now, because they're like, our malpractice doesn't cover this.
Yeah, it's scary.
Definition. Yeah. And then that turns into a decrease of access for people of like these clinics and these physicians. It's the same thing when Roe versus Wade was overturned. I mean, it's the exact same thing. These physicians don't know how to practice. And they're like, I'm not going to put my life because they could get sued, especially a lot of these fertility clinics are privately owned and they don't have big backings of like these corporations. I mean, for malpractice insurance, it's millions of dollars to cover these physicians, even just annually. And I think so. I was kind of a threefold for me. I totally felt what you were feeling and said, yeah, that's really sad for the family. And I know to your point, you're like, yeah, I would have done the exact same thing had those been my two embryos that are biologically related to Ben, knowing that I'm not going to ever have that chance again. And then I also thought, okay, but this really, really hurts access for
and I see
everybody else.
For sure.
Yeah. And I think one of our listeners, I mean, she had noted something. I thought it was really important of just saying like, yeah, I do believe that too, but I'm outraged that this is something that happened in the courts.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's so true. I couldn't say that best.
I feel like we just fumbled through that one. No, I mean, I actually really like that we talked about it because I mean, you're pro-life, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. And I definitely am not definitely, I am pro-choice. And I think we've had these podcasts, we've had, TMFR on, we've had adoption comment, we've had a lot of these subjects, and I feel like you and I are just like always trying to be neutral. But I think it's pretty cool.
It's not this is not like a political podcast. So I think that's where we've always wanted to stay more factual and stay pretty neutral, because it's not about really what Kat and I believe. It's about like all the people that come on our show and the stories and how we can like help encourage other people, and how, I mean, that was the whole reason. So like, it was never meant to be about it. So I don't want this episode to turn to that or people be upset that we've talked about our opinions. We just felt like it was too weird not to address it because it's such a huge thing going on in the IVF world.
Completely agree. I completely agree. It would have just been like, oh, we're not going to talk about it. But I also think I told Amanda before we hit record, I was like, I don't feel educated enough to even dialogue back and forth with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all the facts either, for sure. Yeah.
But I think it's a really cool perspective too. And I think when you said, obviously you're pro-life, but also you adopted embryos. So your thought process is embryos should never be discarded, which really can tie into, I think that embryos are children.
Because and obviously, again, like it's everyone's entitled to their own opinion. They can believe what they want. There's no right versus wrong. Like I don't feel that way. For me, then the easiest way to describe it is if our egg donor would have discarded the rest of her remaining embryos, like Ben wouldn't be here. Like, and that's the only like way I can like in my head of like, I don't know. So for me, like, it just,
do we know? Do you know? And again, I'm like paralyzed because my phone's dead. Do we know when embryo adoption started? Like when they started to allow embryos to be donated out? Yeah, I don't know if you have time to like.
I mean, I can look it up. Embryo.
I've been listening to like the Vial Files with Nick. Yes. We're all talking about Bachelor this season. Right? But I actually his episodes have given me more freedom to just like be a little bit less formal on our show.
I love it. No, I think that's
Yeah,
so
he
fun.
does so like they're so good and like okay, he's definitely not listening to this, but like they horrendously edit their episodes. I mean, things will be on repeat, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna listen again, and they have millions of followers. So, yeah, I feel like, yeah, Google it. Can you find out when?
The first embryo adoption was facilitated by Nightlight Adoption in 1998.
Wow.
Created the Snowflakes. You know, if you've heard the Snowflakes one before. That's like a huge.
Yeah, but I didn't know that was specific to embryo adoption.
Yeah, Nightlife created the Snowflakes embryo adoption program. So 1998. So
Wow, I was 8 years old. You were like 5.
yeah. So yeah, crazy.
Yeah, crazy. Well,
So not to get like so into that, but I just
and I think like and I was gonna say, yeah, just to like leave it is like you're super. I was actually really like you're the one that really wanted to talk about this, which is awesome because again, like these are touchy subjects, so we are very respectful of each other on like how we talk about things. But it's not that either one of us are anxious or nervous to have like a stance, but this is like our podcast. It's neutral ground.
yeah.
And yeah, I think honestly, we'd love to hear like everybody. I mean, I don't know if I'd actually love to hear everybody else's thoughts because it will give me anxiety, but we get it. We know that everybody listening to this is probably like, absolutely not. And this is why. And like, I know I can just like voices in my head. Like I have a dear friend that dedicated her embryos to research. And so her thing would be like, well, no, I couldn't have donated my embryos to research, which then in turn would have allowed another family to have ended up having a good embryo adoption experience. So it's the same thing with the overturning of Roe versus Wade. There is 5,000 avenues you can go down and make really, really solid points. And again, our podcast is how can we help you find ways to build a family and be a mom and dad? And that's why we're here.
Yes, 100%. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's going on in the world. But other than that life update, still just doing IVF and then hopefully, I don't know.
And I'm gonna go to Mexico and then I'm going out west and then maybe we'll start traveling.
All the travel. I love it. So
yeah, it's just, yeah, I'm definitely like anxious to start. So like anxious on both ways. Like I really want to start, but I don't know if it's like PTSD. I also don't want to like start the process.
100%. And it's also the unknown too of like, you have no idea what's going to happen this time around. Yeah.
Wow, that was loaded.
Live tomorrow and we will do another sit down, just us two next month. We'll keep doing these probably just like once a month, and then hopefully I'll update you guys on the antibody stuff. So we will chat with you next month.